Today's video is one that I've been actually looking forward to making for a while. This is going to be on the importance of TPMS systems to protect you, your loved ones, and your rig while you're flying down the road. Sue and I have had the EEZ Tire TPMS unit for 7 years. We actually haven't had much problems with it. We've got some glitches that are starting to happen right now. It's 7 years old, so I decided that it was time to replace it. So today's video is going to be about the one that we're replacing it with. We're going to talk about the importance of knowing your weight per tire, the importance of weighing your rig so you know what to set your TPMS unit to. We're going to talk about some of the gadgets that I have. So probably the time that our previous TPMS system saved our bacon, and why I'm such an advocate of you having one, whether it be the one that we're going to be talking about in this video or not, you need one, was one day in Atlanta when we were in a repair facility, National Indoor. We had been there long enough that unbeknownst to us, we had picked up something in the parking lot, or we had arrived with a flat tire. But we did not know that, because these tires are so big and massive that back on my drive axle, since I have 4 tires back there, because one of them was flat, I didn't even know it. So the day before we were going to leave, I always advocate to turn on the TPMS system, and I always tell people to see if you have a flat tire and you don't know about it. Ha ha ha. Well, guess what? Mine told me I had a flat tire. Now, of course, it was dark already, and it was raining, and it was cold. So when I went out to look at the tire, it didn't look like it was flat. I beat on it with something that I had hanging around. It was harder than hard. And I almost didn't check it with an air gauge. And that's because I didn't have an air gauge. I just had the ViAir system, which we highly recommend that you have. But it required me to screw around a little bit to hook it up, to hook the hoses up and plug it in and use the gauge and then energize it and throw some pressure in to energize the gauge. So in the rain, I was trying to determine if the tire inboard was flat or not, and it was. Now I'm here to tell you that we were about 1 mile away from the freeway system that we would have been on. I would have jumped in the rig, we would have taken off. All 3 of the good tires would have supported the load for a while. That tire on this side in the middle would have started to turn into a rag doll. God only knows what would be happening back here while I don't know about it. And then possibly when it's too late, I would start to have issues back here. And it was by virtue of that TPMS system that it told me that right off the bat that I had a problem before it became a problem. Now, why am I replacing the system now? Well, after 7 years and the importance of protecting our life and limb here with this system, I've started to have the occasional unexplainable alarm, and it's usually been temperature. Like all of a sudden, I'll be 375 degrees. And I'm smart enough to know that, okay, Mark, it's been a good system, time to replace it. So when I'm driving down the road, I'm concentrating just on driving. And we do have the shades down and closed here so that we get better video. But you could see that I have chosen to have very little to look at other than our RV 1095 Garmin, which we absolutely love. And by the way, we did a video on that. So I highly recommend you looking into this. And this actually is a unit that you can get from TechnoRV, and we'll talk about TechnoRV later in this segment. So I almost decided to get another EEZ Tire because I got 7 years out of this thing. I was totally satisfied with it. But when I started looking at what's available, it became obvious that, to me at least, I was wondering what engineering changes were done to this, because it looks virtually the same and it doesn't have any extra features or usability to it. So I'm wondering if the engineering on this is 7 or 10 years old, and I wasn't a big fan about stepping back into that. Now, what I did like about this system was that the tires that are being displayed right now, 100 psi and 79 degrees Fahrenheit, the tires advance, I think every 5 seconds it moves to a different tire. That I wanted to buy a TPMS unit only with that feature. I didn't want to have to ever have a unit where I had to press buttons, and I personally did not want a unit that was an app that interacted with my telephone. And there are units out there by TST that are an app, and if you're an app type of person, then check that one out. But we kind of like to leave our phones as phones, or I leave mine as a phone and Sue uses hers during navigation along with our iPad and along with our Garmin. Now, what I didn't like about this unit was I didn't like the fact that it wasn't color. I was thinking, you know, I think I want to step up and get a color one. Now I'm going to put right next to it the one that we eventually decided to go with, and it was the TST-770 unit. And I do not have it set up. I have all my old sensors on. And I did that so that I could talk about what we had. And when I do get this one set up, I'll show you what that one looks like when it advances. But right off the bat, you can see that even on the setup screen, the colors, everything with the background, the extra size that it is, that is definitely an upgrade. And that was something that we were looking at. The other thing that I did not like about the EEZ Tire was that this suction cup here didn't really hold it on that well. I would have had to use some high bond tape and like tape it to the window, and then it would be in a fixed position. And I don't like things that are in a fixed position because I end up changing my mind a lot. And what would happen is I had to get to the point where I had the dead weight supported down here, even though I was on the suction cup mounted, and then it would stay in position. But I'm here to tell you that if you went over the right bump, this thing would end up flipping off here and would end up like that. And then I'd have to say, hey, Sue, could you stand the unit up? And when you look how Mickey Mouse this little connection is here, and this dinky little, you know, raceway, and it's supposed to snap with this snap here, you know, I'm here to tell you it never worked quite right. Well, this unit here, as it turns out, when I saw this magnet mount, this is really positive. And when you get one of these, or if you have one of these already, you'll know that there's a lot of times you want to take this unit with you when you're out there changing your tire pressures. One of the things I wanted to reiterate here is the importance of buying a TPMS unit. Whichever one you buy one that has temperature and pressure. Very important. And I would also caution you, buy one that's a name brand company. So when I started RVing back in June of 2017, I pretty much didn't know anything about anything other than I had just gotten married, I loved my wife, and I was all excited about starting my new life, whatever that was going to be. So as we started RVing, and eventually we got a YouTube channel, and eventually we got monetized, and eventually we got an Amazon account, that's pretty much where things ended for us in terms of affiliate associations. But I was smart enough to keep my ear tuned and to watch what other people were saying both on Facebook and IRV2 about different companies to be involved with. And one of them that kept popping up was TechnoRV. Now, TechnoRV decided to limit what they offer to RVers to the things that were, I think, a little bit more complex and the type of products that you as a customer really appreciated when you had someone on the other end of the phone that you could call and you could say, hey, I got this thing from you and I'm installing it now and I have a question. And they had the reputation of being the place to buy something from if you wanted someone on the other end to talk to. So I always kept that in the back of my mind that someday I was going to start buying my stuff from them, realizing that I had bought my stuff back in May of 2017 and I didn't know anything about anybody, so I certainly didn't know that they existed. Well, when I decided that I was going to get this 770 unit to replace the one that I currently had, I discovered that the 770 unit was only available on OEM equipment and was only available on an exclusive deal with TechnoRV. Now, I don't know if that's forever going to be that way. I don't know if you're watching this video in a year from now or 3 months from now and it's available in other places. But pretty much, if you want to buy it from somebody that is going to be on the phone for you when you need them, TechnoRV had the exclusive. So I, of course, talked to them, and because we have a YouTube channel, I was able to get this supplied by them. It's the one I was going to buy anyways, and we would take the time and effort to produce this video for you to talk about it. So TechnoRV did supply this to me. Thank you, TechnoRV. First thing I want to tell you about TechnoRV, if you would buy something like this, or if you're thinking about buying something like this, you want to check out their website because Eric does excellent videos. In fact, when I looked at all of the videos on there, I kept thinking, I'm not going to be able to do it better than him. I'm not going to be able to explain that better than he is. But you know what? I'm your average customer, and that's the value that we have. I already showed you the magnetic base, the color screen. It comes with a charging cord, a charging adapter. I showed you my outside old unit that I'm going to reinstall the new unit to refresh it. And here are the cap sensors. Now, the thing that I did different on the cap sensors that isn't even in the instructions, I did because on our EEZ Tire unit, they said, hey, you don't want to get these things mixed up, you know, when you go through the trouble to pairing or assigning a particular tire location with a particular sensor to send it to the screen so that you know that this sensor, for instance, right here, maybe is that tire. What EEZ Tire supplied was little tags that you would put on your sensors. Well, in the instructions on the TST unit, they don't even talk about those tags, but you know what? They supply them. When I put these tags on, I stuck them on and I painted them with clear nail polish so that the tags don't fall off. I didn't believe that that would work, but I'm here to tell you 7 years later, my tags are still on the ones that I did that to. Now I want you to zoom in even closer, honey, and maybe zoom in on this one. There is a high probability that I did not have to put these tags on because you see these little tiny numbers that are on here? These actually are the ID tags electronically that are broadcast from this sender to the new receiver. So when I get to that point, and I'm going to videotape me actually pairing these things to this, somewhere in this menagerie of information here, that number I'm sure is going to pop up. But I didn't want to take the chance that that number would get washed away with the sun and the grime and the salt and everything on the road, and I would kind of lose that bit of information. I'm here to tell you that there are many times when if you have your rig long enough and you replace tires, or you take your Honda in to have the tires rotated, that these things are going to get all mixed up on the tire it should be on. I'm going to take my TST unit and I'm going to input the pressures that I would like to monitor, the values that I want for each and every one of my tires, and I'm going to use the quick installation instructions here, and I'm going to walk around the rig outside once I have that information put into the unit, and I'm going to go up to the tire sensor that's sitting on my tire, and I will in fact go through some buttons here on the learning program portion of it, and I will touch or get close this little Wi-Fi looking, it's actually Bluetooth, it's not Wi-Fi, this little icon here for broadcast, and I will get that close to each and every one of these that's going to be sitting outside, and I'm expecting to be able to do it lickety-split once I learn how to do it. But before we get to that point, everyone needs to know what tire pressure to set each of their tires to. This is the example of a catalog brochure page on your RV, and I did a video on net cargo carrying capacity to try to explain this to people, and hopefully people that were going to buy an RV looked at it before they bought it, because when you understand this after you bought your RV, sometimes you can be in trouble. When I first got this RV, we started in 17, and I had it weighed before this, but probably not as good as this company. This RV SEF and Trey and Susan, they kind of run this shooting match, and you can give these guys a call here or go to this website here, and you can find out where they are weighing rigs. We actually have a video on this when we were at FMCA, the 100th anniversary. On this date, we were weighed. We videotaped that so you can watch the process, and now I'm showing you the results. On my particular rig, 4369 2014, that I'm going to use 130 for my front axle. I'm going to run 95 pounds in my drives. My two tags are going to be 95. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how easy it is to program the sensors. Now, I learned how to do it yesterday before the rain on my rig, so I had 8 times to practice it, and now I've got 4 times to show you. So we'll see if I learned what I was doing. First thing I want to tell you is that in my 7 years of research, the Husky brand, this thick rubber thing, it's 15 bucks. It's at Home Depot, absolutely the best. I want to show you something here before we start. This was the old units, and remember I had said that I had put button tags on them so I could keep them straight. And the one from TST is actually a little bit nicer because it has built in the ID identification numbering on it. But since I'm paranoid, I also put the tags on that they gave me, and I covered them with nail polish, clear nail polish. You can look at these 7 years old covered with nail polish, and it stayed on. So I'm expecting that number 12 to stay on there. Also, I want to show you the size difference. You'll notice that the old ones from EEZ Tire were a little bit smaller. And because of that smallness, they were able to go with a smaller battery in here. But that battery, I think it was a 1632, it was one level harder to always find it and replace it. So I almost always had to like pre-think what I was doing and have a stockpile of them. This one here, now the TST-770 unit, comes with the run-of-the-mill 2032 flat one. You can get it anywhere. You can go to any Walgreens known to man and they'll have them. So the back tire on this side, I'm going to pick the really back one, and I'm going to say learn. It picked it up right away. Exit and save. I've got one more tire to learn, and that would be this back one here. Over here, I also finalized this installation, and because I'm lazy, I just ripped off the old unit and I literally just spliced into the wiring that I had paid somebody else to do. They found a contact in there that was energized by my ignition so that this gadget was on only when the engine is running. Theoretically, this will pick up the signals from the Honda back here, and then it'll get bounced even further up to the sending unit that's sitting on the dashboard. You can see that this thing is really an improvement over what I had before. Even though it's working, it's 7 years old. I don't want to trust life and limb to that. This is what I was looking at before. So you can see why I didn't replace it with the same unit. First of all, this screen here, you see you have some arrows, and it's really not that complicated. You either have this screen or you have this screen. It goes back and forth. The sprocket here brings you to these screens where you can do things, and the pressure alert button that I pressed asks me if I want to look at sensors for my power unit. And in this picture, it's kind of unfortunate that they show a car and a trailer, but who knows, maybe that's the biggest population of people that have these on. And then it shows a trailer. Now our trailer, T1, is got 37 PSI set for the tires, and I had them, when you go to the manual screen here, even though I only utilize 4 sensors, it's got the ability to put 4 inputs in, and because I did it automatically and I used 37 PSI, the high limit was automatically blown in by the program at 25% over my limit and 10% under my limit. If I go to this again and I want to look at my motorhome, that's called a power unit. And my motorhome has more axles than the standard program allowed. So I had to go down here and I had to input them manually. I have my front axle, I have my drive axle, and I have my tag axle. And back here is a spare tire. We don't have a spare tire. I had a little difficulty turning it to 0, and that's because you have to turn the low pressure value to 0 first before you're allowed to turn the upper value to 0. You have to do it in the right order. I don't have sensors on a spare, so it would just be input that would be bothersome to an anal retentive person like me, but it wouldn't affect how anything runs because it's not receiving any signal from that. All right. Another handy screen that I did not have on the poor old lonely unit that we used to have. You'll notice you have these buttons here. This is screen 1, screen 2, screen 1, screen 2. Not that complicated. And what I want to show you is the sensor battery voltage. Did not have that. And I can't tell you how many times you would have maybe kind of a little glitch and you immediately go, oh, it must be the battery, and you start panicking and you're scrambling for a battery. It is nice to get a number so that you know if it was just a fluke, something bounced around too much, or if in fact the battery is a problem. But let's look at the power unit. The power unit, there's Myles, there's our RV. And I chose to use the front, all of the drives, and I used the outboard tires to illustrate the tag. I have no spare, and I have no set of inside tires there. I pressed that front tire here, and it says that it's not 30 volts, it's 3.0. There's a really subtle little decimal point there. So my 3 volt 2032 battery in there is healthy, and that's the name of that particular sensor. So if you got your sensors mixed up, and assuming the name is still on the sensors, you can still read it from the weathering, you would be able to put things back in place. But you did see how easy it was to learn these things. You could just put it on there and relearn that sensor if you really wanted to. When I was automatically learning the codes, I pressed the automatic learn code button, and I went over to our Honda, that's our trailer T1, and if I was to press this right now, it would want me, hey, do you want to relearn another, right now for that tire, that's your sensor. If I hit learn, I would go in the process of relearning a sensor for that position. I, of course, don't want to do that. So I guess this wraps up this video, and we'd like to invite you to just subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. The YouTube algorithm recognizes the relevance of YouTube channels only when folks actually subscribe to them. It's free, and it's especially good with coffee in the morning. So until we get to meet you on the road or in a campground someday, we invite you to join us most Sunday mornings for another episode of Our Journey in Miles.